Hey everyone, how's it going? I want to dive into the examples I lived with in my life, and it may be why I am the way I am today. But I'm going to talk about my grandmothers, who I can't tell you who you'd find a more faithful set than those two. They were both lovers of God, the church, the Catholic Church per se, and they were faithful servants. They were amazing, kind, wonderful. Um, I can't say enough. They were loving, gracious, always serving their families. They'd walk in and you'd always have warm food. It's hugs, kisses. Yeah, grandmas that were interactive and made you feel special. And I never saw either of them with a frown, or neither of them cried. I never saw them say, "Oh, woe is me," or complain. I really, really, really was very, very fortunate. And so I want to talk about two women that could have said, "Oh, woe is me," or "Life is really tough," or have rained on your parade every single day, but they didn't, and I'll dive into it. So my mom is the oldest of eight, and I don't know where her brother Dennis falls into line, but um, her brother, my uncle, committed suicide. I don't know what year it was. I think it was shortly before I was born, maybe. He took his own life. But yet I never saw my grandmother, his mother. And maybe she had had enough time to process. But even as a little girl, I'd ask her about him, and she'd always share fond memories of him. And she always focused on the positive. And you could see a sadness in her eyes, but that was a fleeting moment where she would turn her frown upside down and talk about what a wonderful person he was, and what a wonderful smile he had, and how loving he had been, and what a great son he had been as well. And so I just remember seeing that strength in her, that steadfastness, that appreciation for his life. And I know it caused a certain sadness, but she didn't let that show. And so then moving on to my paternal grandmother, she had been in a situation where there had been domestic violence. My grandfather would regularly beat her and assault her. Now, granted, he locked my dad and his brother in the bedroom while this was occurring, and so my dad was never an eyewitness to it, but he heard everything. But yet my grandmother never said anything negative about him. She just didn't talk about it. I know she had a breakdown after he ended up committing suicide, and then after us grandkids were born, she poured herself into us, and her life became yet complete in one way. And so she never spoke ill of him, ever. Not of her situation. She never made excuses. She came and cared for us kids. She loved us girls and all of her grandchildren. And the one time I was able to get her to crack just a little bit was when I brought my daughters over. They very little, I think 1 and 2 years old or something like that, and we were visiting and playing. And I said, Grandpa wasn't a very nice person, and she shook her head no. And that's all she ever said. But these are two women who could have, should have, would have been able to use their circumstances as excuses as to why you shouldn't go on. But they did. They were steadfast, they were faithful, and I think they just gave it to God, to be honest with you. So that was the example I was raised with. And I'm going to ask you, what were your examples? Were you raised to be steadfast, or to say, "Oh, woe is me. Oh, I stubbed my toe and I should sit down and put my foot up for a while," or you stub your toe and then you keep going? You wrap it up and you say, "We're going to keep going." So I just wanted to share that. I thought it was imperative. And that's all there is to it. And we'll be back.